When it comes to Rolex, enthusiasts have their favorite models, and with good reason, especially when considering styles and value retention. Ask them about their top choices and you'll hear them say Submariner, GMT Master 2, the Daytona, and the like. While everyone is focusing on a specific few, and everyone wants the same thing, the other Rolex models tend to be neglected and fly under the radar for the most part. And one of these happens to be the Explorer II, or the forgotten Rolex. And perhaps the main reason why it doesn't enjoy the same popularity as its Submariner, Daytona, and GMT counterparts is that it is a simple and minimalistic tool watch that doesn't announce itself on the wrist, which is why its appeal can be elusive to some. But today, we're going to see how, despite its overlooked and understated elegance, the Explorer II is a solid watch with unashamedly utilitarian styling that is ideal for daily wear, and it deserves much more attention than it gets. Watch enthusiasts who have been ignoring the Explorer II need to know that it has been tested in the harshest environments possible and has always come up a winner, making it an imposing addition to any collection. And the latest iteration offers a caliber 3132 and a fresh aesthetic that should put it on their lists. Let's briefly go over the history of the Explorer II before we discuss its specs and features. You probably know that Rolex made watches for all sorts of extreme professions back in the day, and has been equipping explorers with oyster watches for expeditions since the 1930s. These Explorer timepieces primarily served as tools, meaning they accompanied numerous Himalayan expeditions, including the group that Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay was part of when they became the first climbers to reach the summit of Everest on 29th May 1953, and have been worn by explorers venturing to the far corners of the globe, through deserts, at the poles, or in the depths of the earth. These terrains and environments are often harsh and poorly lit, making distinguishing day from night impossible, which is why the Explorer II, with its 24-hour display, which Rolex launched in 1971 as an improvement to the original Explorer series, is an essential part of explorers and speleologists' equipment, because the original Explorer II had quite a different set of features, looks, and size, and was intended for plumbing the depths of caves rather than for scaling peaks. On its website, Rolex describes the Explorer II, saying, "Thanks to its 24-hour display, the Explorer II accompanies those who venture into the unknown, where the boundary between day and night is blurred." So the 24-hour display actually has an additional hand and an engraved bezel, which allow the wearers, who were meant to be spelunkers or Arctic explorers, to clearly distinguish daytime from nighttime hours. Although it looked like a GMT watch with the prominent arrow-shaped fourth hand and the steel bezel, it functioned differently. Now, there aren't a lot of Explorer II models because, unlike the highly popular Submariner, it didn't get a new reference every 2 years or so on account of being a new watch for spelunking rather than being an everyday wear one for the general public. Nonetheless, the successive improvements in each new Explorer II reference, of which there are 5, are pretty noteworthy. Rolex made the first Explorer II bigger than its predecessor by giving it a 39mm stainless steel case, in addition to a brand new date window at 3 o'clock. More improvements included 24-hour markings on the fixed bezel, and combined with the orange 24-hour hand, its wearer can easily identify what time of day or night it was in pitch-dark areas with no reference for time. However, the 1655 is not a dual-time watch, since its bezel is fixed, and despite housing the Rolex caliber 1570, 1575, just like the GMT Master, it didn't have a second time zone as reference, which was a big letdown for the market, which made it unpopular. It also had a blocky hands and indices with a kind of a military look that cried for changes. Learning from this, Rolex made some necessary improvements on later models. Fun fact, this model is sometimes called the Steve McQueen, although there is no known connection between this watch and the actor. Let us know in the comments why this is. In 1985, Rolex came up with variations to the previous iteration, and they were much closer to the most recent Explorer II, because of which it is called the transition reference. So the case size was increased from 39mm to 40mm. It was outfitted with the unmistakably Rolex Mercedes handset and dial. It also got a sapphire crystal, a new movement, and a white dial version, while the bright orange 24-hour hand was toned down and it now only featured a red stem. The 1655 had a revamped dial with a sportier look, and the lume-filled markers had a combination of triangle, round, and rectangular shapes. Like I said, it had the Mercedes-style hands like other sports watch models. The 24-hour hand was made longer and thinner, allowing independent adjustment from the center hands with the Rolex caliber 3085, because of which the Explorer II became a GMT watch. The new movement made the 24-hour hand separately adjustable from the main time, meaning it could be set to display a second time zone or used for the current time zone as originally intended, of course. However, the wider bezel added to its bolder size remained fixed, and this helped to differentiate its functionality from the GMT Master II. 4 years later, the reference 16570 cemented the improvements made from the reference 16550, but they were relatively minimal changes. It received a new movement, the caliber 3185, although later models of the same reference used the very similar caliber 3186. The hour markings of the white dial Polar Explorer were now outlined in starkly contrasting black rather than white gold like before, and the result is visually pretty striking. The lume used on this reference was also updated over time. It first uses tritium, followed by luminova, and finally superluminova. This reference remained in production for 22 years until it was replaced by the current reference 216570 in 2011. As I mentioned earlier, Rolex launched the Explorer II reference 216570 for the 14th anniversary of the original Rolex II in 2011, and this version is essentially the Explorer II we have today. This is the largest Explorer II yet, with an oyster steel case that measures 42mm, which gives it more space for bigger indexes and hands, and an even brighter lume for optimal legibility. The dial was illuminated with Rolex's own chroma-light material, giving off a cool minty blue glow, and the watch's rehaut was engraved with a repeating Rolex. Rolex really revamped it for a modern and more likable look and appeal, but traces of the reference 1655 still appears on it. Much like its predecessor, the reference 216570 had two versions of the dial. It's available in either a white as the reference 216570 WSO or in black as the reference 216570 BKSO. The characteristic all-orange 24-hour hand of the original 1971 model was also black. The reference 216570 also had an orange-tipped 24-hour hand, but it is different from the thin red arrow on the reference 16550 and 16570. To match this, the Explorer II on the dial is also printed in orange. Powering the watch is the self-winding Rolex caliber 3187. The movement, manufactured in-house by the brand, features a parachrome hairspring and paraflex shock absorbers. In case you're wondering why, these functions mean that extreme conditions are no match with the modern-day Explorer II, proving itself as the most durable and best version of its series. It is perfect for adventurers and globetrotters, as it also features a dual-time display, which makes it more reliable than the reference 1655, having been awarded as a superlative chronometer with an accuracy of -2 to +2 seconds per day. Just so you know, the same movement can be seen on the Datejust Deep Sea Sea Dweller and the Yachtmaster, which makes it just as functional as they are, minus the swag. Now we come to the last iteration, for which Rolex noted the popularity of the classic 216570 and stuck to its winning formula when it released the new and latest reference 226570 to celebrate the collection's 50th anniversary in 2021. Rolex changed only what it felt could be improved upon, because that's how it rolls. So this one has some general upgrades besides the latest Rolex movement, which was upgraded to caliber 3285 with a power reserve of up to 70 hours. It also has the latest Rolex Lume, which is an optimized chroma light display and bracelet, plus a refined and thinner 43mm case with a matching bracelet. Now, if you're thinking of adding this sleeping giant to your must-have list, you'll want to know its price. Although it remains overshadowed by other popular Rolex, its cut rate value persists as compared to other Rolex watches. Sure, it's had the regular few markups in the past years, but it remains within the modestly priced margin of Rolex watches. The typical selling price of the Rolex Explorer II reference 216570 is less than $10,000, which in all fairness is a fraction of the price of the Submariner or Yachtmaster II. The line is not as rare as other Rolex watches, but its pieces definitely aren't as plenty either. Just so you know, Rolex has been rolling back on steel watches, perhaps to boost its prices, but authorized dealers are being affected by this as the price of Explorer II continues to go up, especially for the vintage models. On the other hand, the second-hand market is an ideal place to get pre-owned Explorer II watches for relatively lesser prices, as they are slowly becoming a favorite among collectors. Overall, while you can't expect the same elegance from a Datejust or a Daytona, an Explorer II is a perfect alternative for more expensive tool watches from the same brand. And perhaps it is the ultimate Rolex sports watch. And guess what? More people are realizing it now. What do you think? Do you agree? Let me know in the comments. If you liked this video and found it informative, be sure to stay tuned to find out more about Rolex watches. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.